Hi, I'm Not, and I made this. Welcome to another episode of What Not to Craft in Gwent. This time we're gonna look at all the monster cards you do not need. This overview is a Google Doc. The link for it is in the description below. Also, the rules on what a card has to do to get into this list are in the same Google Doc. Also, they're explained in part 1 of the series, which is also linked on the second page of this Google Doc. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Burn of Shadows. The monster stratagem tries to support a Deathwish archetype, which in this form just isn't really there in Gwent. You can trigger bronze allied units' Deathwish abilities. For example, you can spawn a 5-point harpy, you can boost the highest unit by 4, or you can do 4 random damage points. Thing is, the neutral cards that do similar things are oftentimes much more flexible and much more reliable. You have to draw the Deathwish card you want to use in this first round, and also with the 4 random damage with the 4-point boost, you cannot control which unit gets boosted or which unit gets damaged. So Urn of Shadows just doesn't have the flexibility the neutral counterparts have to offer. Moving on, Tetherwing. It's a dual faction card, but in the Monsters faction it basically has one role. Destroy a 1-point unit that is spawned by Caranthir, as long as this unit doesn't get destroyed in a turn between playing Caranthir and the turn where you play Tetherwing. Now, the highest value combo would be Caranthir into Old Spear Tip, and then consume that with Tetherwing for a 12-point boost on the Tetherwing, but it just isn't worth it provisions wise. Also, being locked into this 3-card combo where you have to draw all the combo pieces and cannot allow any of them be let out of you just makes Tetherwing pretty bad. Also, it has a disadvantage because you cannot destroy / consume a already boosted unit without losing out on lots and lots of power, lots and lots of points. Also, you have to destroy an allied unit if you play this. You cannot cancel the deploy ability. So Tetherwing just is a bit risky, and even if it plays just as you have planned, just as you wanted it to, it just isn't worth it points for provision wise, because monsters, they have lots of better combos at the same provision price point. Now, moving on to Werkat. Werkat, it has Thrive, so it's a card you want to play early in the round, but then it has this deploy ability of damaging all the units on the opposite row by 1, which is a late round 2, and the Deathwish ability is just kind of weird. You might be able to play Werkat early on, get all the thrives off of it, but then triggering the Deathwish will be a bit weird because the opponent in most cases would have played around the Werkat already. So it just is very counterintuitive, and it just tries to do 2 different things and does none of them well. Also, at 7 provisions you can just play Lacerate. Lacerate, an organic card, has lots of synergy with the Monsters faction, and Werkat just tries to combine Deathwish and Thrive in a way that really isn't worth it. Now, those were all the gold cards. Moving on now to the bronzes. Ice Troll. Ice Roll is basically Caltulus support. You profit from having fewer units than the opponent. Thing is, Caltulus thrives, well, doesn't thrive in a Gwent way, but thrives in a deck where you just don't have that many units. So it really is counterintuitive to give this card some bronze support, because it would rather play just bronze spells, bronze special cards, artifacts, not units. Ice Roll might be a nice engine, but it's pretty hard to pull off, especially as it's easy to answer it. Run Warrior, the machine gun runs. They were pretty good back in the days when Portal was good, when Run was a 4/4, and also it doesn't boost itself by 1, but it damaged by 1. Actually, it might have been a 3/4. I don't exactly remember, but damaging is just a much stronger effect than boosting it himself. Also, the Araka screen rework made the Run Warrior a bit weaker because you weren't able to destroy that many units reliably anymore. And also, there's Cheat Roll of Verdun. She has the same effect, but she boosts herself by 2 for every destroyed unit, so if you want to combo something like that, this effect with Lusty Verb, you're better off just playing a Cheat Roll for the quick 1-2 combo and not setting up 2 Vrans and losing out on tempo there. Now, the Desert Banshee. You mostly see her coming from Haunt. The effect is kind of nice, actually. Order consume a unit, just like Babagazi, but it's a 4/5, which can be answered pretty quickly, so you might just want to play a Board Guest. Also has the order ability, but also has a deploy ability. It's a 5/5 with 2 consumes with 2 Deathwish triggers. And this will in most cases give you a bit more value than the Desert Banshee, who just boosts herself whenever a Deathwish unit is played. Thing is, Deathwish decks don't play that many Deathwish units in a single round, so she's a bit handicapped in that regard. Also, after consuming a unit, Desert Banshee most of the time is already a pretty tall unit. Boosting it further just plays into poison and toll removal, making her, yeah, not that good of an engine. Now, moving on to Wyvern, a 5/5 with Thrive. Not that bad when you look at it that way, but there's just much better alternatives. You can play a Bruxa, who also does 3+2 bleeding, not damage, but she also has 1 provision point less. She's a bit cheaper, and she has a vampire attack, which has some synergy in a vampire deck. Wyvern doesn't have much beast synergy, you wouldn't want to play it in a beast deck, and also it's just fallen victim to the power creep. 2 points of damage just aren't worth it if you are not able to remove anything reliably. Barrelor, also a bit behind the power curve now after a couple of expansions. 3 points in and trigger a Deathwish ability. Most of the time you'd rather just consume, get some more points out of it, and re-triggering bronze units' Deathwishes isn't really a thing. Isn't really that good also. Maybe Marillon could use 1 point more, maybe 1 provision less, but the way it stands right now, Marillon just is not really worth it. Moving on, Alp. Alp is the big sister to the Bruxa, I guess. Gives 2 turns more bleeding, but lacks the thrive, which makes her much worse in a long round than a Bruxa. I think that the effect just isn't an upgrade, isn't justifiable in a vampire deck. It's not a tool you need, not a tool you want to use in a vampire deck, so not worth crafting. Now, Feast of Blood. The monster's counterpart to Skratel's Nature's Caress, which purifies and boosts, also gives vitality, making it maybe a bit more reliable. Also, even if you don't purify something, Nature's Caress just is better because it reliably gives you points. Feast of Blood, it requires a vampire for the bleeding synergy, for the Oriana synergy, for the Garcane synergy, and also it has one weakness. If you purify an enemy unit, most of the time it's gonna be a defender, and defenders most of the time have armor or a shield. In the case of Northern Realms defender, well, damaging a unit by 3, which already has armor, is pretty bad. Also, having to rely on a vampire already on your board may be a bit bad for this card. Also, if an opponent plays very few units and you have already as a vampire deck given pretty much all of them bleeding, Feast of Blood sometimes has to purify a bleeding before applying some more bleeding, making it a bit of a making it take away some value, actually. So yeah, Feast of Blood, not really worth it. Not even in a vampire deck, not even in an organic deck, because organic decks don't play vampires. Now, the Cockatrice. These decks don't play like Cockatrice would wanna make you think. These decks, they are the red swarm on your own side, boosting all the reds with Morbid, but not just playing a couple of beasts and then profiting from having more of them. Also, a conditional 6/4/4 is not that good in Monster Faction. They have Thrive units which have much higher ceilings. Cockatrice, not really worth it. Now, Forktail, another victim of the Arrakis Spree nerf. It was good when you could just respawn all the Arrakis drones you just destroyed. In the meantime, trigger some Vzans, trigger some what's her name, She-Troll of Bergen boosts, but now it just doesn't have the support it needs. Monsters, they tend to swarm, and Forktail just takes away value in that regard. And even in a Thrive heavy deck, Forktail is not worth it. You'd rather just play a bigger unit, something that triggers Thrive, instead of something that plays for effectively 0 points by damaging all your 4.5 units back to 3, then dropping them back up to 4, and in the meantime doing some damage on the enemy side, on the opponent's side. Yeah, not that good actually. You'd rather just play Lacerate at that point. Fiend, boosting all Deathwish units in your hand buff isn't a monster thing. Also, you don't have that many Deathwish units in your hand that Fiend is worth it. The effect is just weird, doesn't fit into any monster stack, into the monsters faction. Now, the Siren, the last card on this list. Boosting an allied Deathwish unit by 3 is pretty bad when at a similar price point you could trigger a Deathwish unit's effect, not play into toll removal, and get some more points out of it. Siren just is a weird card in that mid-range playstyle which monsters just doesn't utilize. You'd rather just play a Thrive unit at 4 provisions. Siren, just not worth it. And that's it. that's all the monster cards you do not want to craft. Let's take one more look at the list of the Google Doc that is linked down in the description below. Next time we're gonna look at Nilfgaard cards. Thank you for watching, and I'm happy to see all your feedback on which cards do not fit onto my list, which cards I should have included maybe. Join me on Discord, link also in this Google Doc. Join me on Twitch, leave a follow, subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss the next part of the series. Thanks for watching, see you next time, bye!